Welcome to the Top Order podcast. On tonight's episode, we are in cricket kit badger heaven as we speak to batmaker to the stars, Josh Gavan. Having started his obsession with cricket bats back in 2012, his workshop has seen cricketing stars from across the world make a beeline to Sydney to utilise his expertise. From Dre Russ to Chris Gayle, Joe Root to Aussie legends Shane Watson and Steve Smith, JP boasts an impressive clientele, and none more so than his 2022 signing Elise Perry, who will be using his kit this year. JP, welcome to the Top Order podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, so look, you'll have sensed the excitement in my voice. I am a cricket bat tragic. So remember my first cricket bat vividly, a little brand out of Birmingham in the UK called Quaif and Lily. It was a grown-up's bat that was kind of chopped off so I could use it as probably a size 3 or something like that. And then I lived in the area where Duncan Fernley was pretty big as a youngster. So he got a lot of my dad's money over the course of my formative years. But we wanted to talk, a number of different things. But I think the first thing is just a little bit of an intro. What got you into, cricket bats? What did you have growing up, and how did you start your business, your passion?
What did I have growing up? That's a good one. I think I had a couple of junior Slazenger bats. They used to be well known for good junior kits, so I had plenty of them. The story goes, though, that my dad made me take my first bat down to cash converters and sell it for $10. So I no longer have that one. Someone else has that. Look, I started when I was 16. I started the business quite young. Obviously, I was in high school. So it was just a passion for cricket, and I played a lot. I played since I was 8. So sort of just built from there. And obviously, I've built the business quite slowly and organically. It's sort of just been a hobby. And that's genuinely what it is. It's just a hobby for me that has developed through a lack of Australian bat makers, really, to a full-time job where I've now had guys on board that help me out in the shop. We're still in our original location near Bondi in Sydney. I sort of taught myself bat making most of the time. I did a couple of weeks of work experience over in India. They sort of taught me a little bit about bat repairs, and I don't use a lot of that knowledge anymore, but it's sort of gave me a good little base to sort of work on and learn a little bit about cricket bats.
I guess going back to when I was growing up, there was heaps and heaps of small independent bat makers, particularly in the UK where I'm from. You've probably seen that dwindle a little bit and the bigger brands come in. What's been the impact, do you think, on the industry from that perspective over the course of the last, 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, look, it's a hard one, right? Where English willow is a tough thing to get your hands on, especially in Australia. I feel like in the UK, there are still strong, small bat makers. Willow's grown locally, so it's a lot more easy to get your hands on. But in Australia, we're one of 5 moderately sized bat makers. So it is quite a niche market for us, and I feel like that's where we've done quite well, actually, finding a little hole in the market there where, there's all these big guys, and we sort of slot in with the customer service that we can provide to individual customers. They can come in and actually talk to someone who makes bats. So I know it's quite big over in the UK. I know it's still quite strong there, which is great. There are the odd bat makers popping up in Australia, which I think is absolutely fantastic. I think it's absolutely needed. It's needed more locally for, a lot of club cricketers. They need to go to their bat maker. I look at it like a dentist. You go to the dentist and, get your teeth checked up once a year. But question for you guys, do you reckon you spend more on your teeth or your cricket bats?
Well, look, I guess I'm British, so definitely more on my cricket bats. We're not renowned for our dentistry in the UK. Definitely be cricket bats for me. Lippy, I don't know about you.
I'm a bowler, so I'm more of a passenger in this conversation. So, I was always looking.
So Stu looks like he's disappeared. Josh, we'll just kind of jump in terms of, I guess, the impact of these massive bits of willow now. And look, you'll know more about the technical components of this than I will, but the size of the bats is often something now that you hear talked about on commentary. What are some of those modern trends, and what are you seeing in terms of the impact of the quality of cricket bats on the game, and the way we're seeing these kind of top edges just fly 100 meters?
Yeah, well, there's obviously a lot of different things that come in there. It's a tough question for me because I've been around bat making for 10 years. So I started where that technology had already developed. But for me, what I can see when repairs come through and stuff like that is that the bats are obviously bigger than they used to be. They tend to be lighter because of different techniques bat makers are using to, one, dry them out, and then two, to shape them. There's quite a shift towards obviously having big light bats, and that makes a better bat. It doesn't quite last as long. I feel like I try and manufacture a little bit in the old way, but there is a draw to making big cricket bats that sort of perform a lot better. In terms of top edges, though, I think batters are actually swinging faster. I think that's a big one. And boundaries are pulled in a little bit as well. So there's a little bit of like absolutely everything in that. I know there was a lot of records broken a few years ago when they changed the ODI rule to have 4 outside the ring at the end of the innings. So scoring was a lot quicker and a lot easier. Not exactly down to the bats, but bats play a part in that for sure, because if you get your hands on the lightest piece of wood that performs really well, it makes the game that much easier for someone at the top level.
Trends kind of emerge, I guess, in the way that bats are made, how they look. What are the bat nerds that are coming into your workshop asking for now in terms of specifications or any little nuances? I've noticed one thing is this like little donut at the top of the bat handle where people are using that kind of counterbalance. But yeah, any other kind of really geeky things that these purists are wanting in their willow now?
Not particularly. I see a lot of different types of clients where everyone wants something that's individual, and that's probably the trend now, that everyone wants something that looks a bit different to what their mates use. And I feel like everyone comes in and has their little idea of what the best bat's going to be. They'll use, my knowledge and my bat making experience to sort of get the best product for them. But yeah, everyone's using something a little bit different. I think that's great. I think everyone plays a little bit differently. What you mentioned there with the knob on the handle, that was pretty common, made famous by Brendan McCullum, I believe. That's the first time I can sort of remember that. Haven't seen his bats personally, so I can't tell exactly what it was, but we have a little technique in the shop that we just cut up grips into little strips and put them over each other so they make that knob at the top. The final grip goes over the top of it, and it acts as that counterbalance. Good for certain types of players. You've got to hold the bat quite low towards the shoulders for that to work. If you hold it quite high up, you actually need a smaller knob at the top so you can actually hold it properly. Everyone's a little bit different. There's nothing I can put my finger on that people really like, other than sort of big, light, full bats. That's it.
And how much experimentation are you actually doing?
Really, you saw a lot of these sort of. I guess.
Sorry, boys.
Sorry, how much
No worries, Stu. You go.
How much experimentation are you doing in the workshop there? Like, I don't know. Like I'm just thinking about things that I've seen. I've seen like we saw the mongoose for a little while, like the cut down bats, and then there's bowed bats, flat shoulders, flat toes. Like, are you kind of testing out all that stuff in your workshop?
I think my favourite one, we made a few baseball type bats a few years ago when I was in lockdown, real bored. We do the odd little bit of innovation. I think the short blade long handle is here to stay. I think that's something that most brands have moved towards now. It's only 10 mil and it's something that you can't really notice. So I feel like it's a good nuance to get a little bit of weight out. But yeah, we tried some bats based on other sports because I was bored. And yeah, baseball was one of them because obviously a low loaded bat with a domed profile that has a wide hitting area has that power of that baseball bat, like the domed bottom where it has power all the way through the bottom 2/3 probably. We sold a few of them. I haven't heard back from the clients. Hopefully they like their bats. Yeah, we do play around a little bit. We do use other people's ideas sometimes when customers come in and they sort of have their way of making. We sort of jump on there and we can sort of make everything here, which is really nice.
Tell us about your most pernickety customer, someone who really wanted every single detail. You obviously don't have to name them, but yeah, what's been the strangest and most difficult process you've gone through?
Actually, I've got a client at the moment who comes back maybe 2 or 3 times a year. Loves his bats, but is very picky with his handles, and he's got to the stage where he will shape his handles at home with a rasp, and sort of like take nicks out of the handles so that his like fingers can fit in there properly and like it suits his sort of like underhand grip, and like he just brings them in and gets me to just bind them and then off he goes. There are certainly clients out there that are quite finicky. Handles are a big one. They got to feel comfortable. Some people like them a very, very certain way. Some people like offset oval handles. So oval handles that don't sit straight down the back of the spine. They're slightly offset so you can open your hands a little bit more and get a little bit more power. We also have these squirrel grips, which are quite common around Sydney, which are just grips, but they have a thick line down the middle, and you have to like glue these things on. And they were started as like a coaching aid, but now people start using. We actually sponsored like 3 or 4 players that use these grips that have like it's almost like putting a chopstick under your grip, and it sort of just sits, and your hands stay open. People can be finicky with weight, balance, absolutely everything. The pros know what they like, and I really respect those guys because they literally spend every day thinking about their bats, and they have to because it's their profession. So when they come in, they know exactly what they like.
And you see, I guess the players line up with dozens and dozens of bats at times when they're getting the 12th man to come on. How similar are a top player's bats now? Do they look to have one shape, one sort of weight and profile, and they'll just have 10 of those in the kit bag, or will they kind of mess around a little bit with the way their bat works for maybe different conditions, or carry different weights and things like that in the kit bag?
Yeah, the guys I work with pretty much exactly the same. They like them all relatively similar. No real changes. The saying is that they train like they play, so all their bats need to feel the same. Naturally, the trick for me is that Willow has different weights to it. The size can be the exact same, the dimensions can be the exact same, and the weight can be 2 or 3 ounces off. So for me as a bat maker, that's tricky to get the exact same shape and weight when they bring it in. I have to go through the process of making sure they know that if they want the exact same weight, the bats are going to be a little bit different, which is one thing in itself. Or if you want to go for the same shape, the weight's going to be a little bit different. So just playing around with that, making sure the player knows what their bats are going to be like. And I get a good understanding from the players anyway. They tend to know exactly what they're after. So a lot of them come in and be like, I need all these the exact same weight. And I think I did one for one of the Aussie players where they brought in 10 or 15 bats or something silly, where it was like, can you make all of these? I think it was about 11, 30 grams or something. It's super light. So all of them came down to that weight, and I got them within like 3 grams of each other, which is absolutely nothing. That's a couple of shavings of sandpaper, and got him exactly the same weight. Then he came in 6 months later, and I didn't see any of those bats. So literally, they went into the garage, and were never used again. So one, they know what they like, but they do change their mind a little bit from batch to batch. Some players get 6 bats at a time from their sponsors, and they'll use maybe one of them. Maybe one will go to a teammate. Maybe another's a net bat, and the rest goes in the garage. So it depends on the player a little bit.
Keeping on the pro theme a little bit there, in terms of the guys that are with the big bat manufacturers now, the big brands. If I go back, and I'm talking 25, 30 years ago, there were bat makers in the UK like Miller, Champ and Hall who were really, really well thought of. A lot of the players would go and get their bats from there and then just get them labelled up. Is that still something that happens? Are you kind of making bats from scratch for a lot of players, and they'll just stick the sponsors' logos on? And I guess if that's the feeling, A, do they pay you for them, and B, how does that make you feel when your kit's going out to battle with a big brand logo on it?
We do it a bit, but the trick is that we don't do it for a lot of Australian players. They're actually pretty good with their sponsors. What happens usually is Big Bash comes around, the international players come over, and they're usually the guys who need bats. Either they're out of country and they need bats, or they just want to try something new. And we're a relatively new company, and being from Australia, they're intrigued in what we do. So, yes, we do make blank bats. Yes, the players do pay for them. Not a lot of Aussie guys, though. We do a lot of repairs for those guys. They have really good sponsors that look after them. Because Australia's a little bit smaller, the state comp, there's only 6 teams. So it's a smaller playing pool. The sponsors can actually look after their players quite well. There's not a huge amount of players that these sponsors look after. Some of the big brands only sponsor like 10 people. So they're able to provide good equipment, which is really good, but it means that we tend to make our bats for clients that are customers that walk in the shop from club cricket or junior cricket. We can work with them. Come Big Bash, though, we'll probably make a few blank ones that you don't know that are ours.
Yeah, and we'll be looking out for the profile when we're watching the Big Bash come Christmas time. Let's kind of move it back to, I guess, club cricket and the average punter like Stu or I. If we're going to go in and have something made from scratch or pick something up off the shelf, what are the things that you think you should be looking for now when you're going out and buying a cricket bat?
Look, the most important thing is performance. The bat really needs to have a good performance on it. It's got to ping, as people say, and that tends to be the most important thing. The secondary to that, but not far behind, is how it feels to you as an individual. It actually needs to feel perfect when you swing the bat. A lot of people end up going in looking for a big bat that's whatever weight, but the nature of cricket bats, there's 2 natural products. One is the English willow and the other is the cane handle. Both have a variance of weight. So you could go into a shop and find a 2 pound 9 ounce bat, but the blade is a lot lighter and the handle is heavier, which means it's going to balance quite well. And vice versa, you could have a really light handle and a heavy blade and it weighs 2.9, but that's going to balance really badly. So go into a shop, you need to feel what you're after, or you need to go to a bat maker who knows what they're doing and is able to create a balance that you need. But yeah, if you're going into a shop, make sure the bat pings, make sure it feels good. Don't look at the size that well. Like, it doesn't matter how big the bat is. it does matter that it performs. In general, smaller bats won't perform as well as bigger bats, but you got to test the performance. So you may find some thinner bats that perform and feel amazing, and some big bats that just are absolute dead. We actually get a lot of weight reductions in our repairs for these big 3 pound, 6 ounce bats that people jump in the shop and they see the size of them, they love them. But absolutely impossible for anyone to use. Even someone like Chris Gayle, he was using around 3 pound when I last saw him. So he's a big boy. He goes to the gym a lot. Casual park cricketers may not go to the gym as much or have quite the talent. So using something super heavy may not work out. And you lose a bit of bat speed and can't hit the ball as well. So something that feels good, something that performs, and that's what I'd look for.
Yeah, look, I doubt with the average park cricketer it's too much about the gym. It is probably that inherent talent that's probably the top of that, top of that list. Talk to us a little bit about working with Elise Perry. What's it like to, I guess, develop a range with a professional cricketer, and what kind of input do they have into your business and the kind of things that you might put out through the workshop for the average cricketer as well?
Pez is one of the greats. She's genuinely one of the best players that have ever played the game in men's or women's cricket. So absolute privilege for us to get her on board, especially as a small independent bat maker. We approached her, but she was absolutely keen from get-go to come on board. And we gave her the option to develop her own range. And, that hasn't come out yet, but that's coming out soon. And it's going to be absolute cracker. I've been involved with her in the development of it. And we feel like we're nailing down. I've got to be careful what I say here, but look, it's going to be really cool what she's brought out. But in terms of her equipment, I've actually repaired her bats the last 5 years, so I have a good little grasp on what she needs as a player. And I've watched a lot of cricket in general and women's cricket included, because we sponsor a lot of the female players through WBBLs. And we have a couple of other Australian players sponsored by us, and we make bats for them. So watched a lot of Elise and understand her game, and she's actually quite good. She knows pretty much exactly what she's after in her bats and the other equipment that she uses as well.
Awesome. And look, closing question from us. Also wanting to get a little bit of a tip for the junior cricketer. I know I've got my little, my 12-year-old son will be knocking at my door very shortly to get his new piece of willow for the upcoming season. Any tips out there for younger cricketers, what they should be looking for, and perhaps for their parents as well?
Weight is key. Weight is absolutely key. When you go to buy a kid's bat, a kid can drive any sort of weight. It really won't matter. Where the interest and the key comes in is where you play cross bat shots. And really important in junior cricket, you play on synthetic pitches, they bounce a lot. Your kid's going to be playing cross bat shots. They're going to be pulling and hooking and cutting because the ball bounces more. And to be successful at that sort of junior level and development stage, the bat needs to be super light. And parents fall into the trap of buying heavy bats for their kids. It's really difficult because they can't pick it up and feel and use it. They've got to trust what the kid says, but they also don't really know what they're after. So getting them to play back foot shots at full pace, you make sure there's nothing around them so they don't hit anything, but full pace is key. And if there's any sort of resistance when they're playing their pull or hook shot, you got to go down in weight. The other one there is handle thickness. You can get really thick handles for junior bats and they're just no good. Kids can't get their hands around it. So thin handles and lightweight bats. Performance doesn't really matter at that stage when they're sort of developing. It just needs to be light enough for them to be able to swing and hit the middle of that. That's my advice.
Awesome. And Josh, we've got listeners all around the world. So primarily in New Zealand, obviously, as a New Zealand cricketing podcast. Tell our listeners, though, particularly all around the world and internationally, how they can get in touch with you. I'm assuming you can have a bat made from anywhere in the world and shipped off to you if you know the specifications that you want.
Yeah, so we're JP Gavan Cricket. You can jump on Instagram and follow us. But I'd also suggest looking up your local bat maker as well. Like, we can ship anywhere in the world, but supporting your local bat maker is really, really important. Whoever they may be, you got to make sure they're good, firstly. But yeah, I'd heavily ask you to check out your local bat maker. Really important to support that industry.
Awesome. Well, Josh, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I know we've got some thunderstorms here in New Zealand, which might be affecting Stu's internet by the looks of things. He's been frozen in the top corner of my screen pretty much all the way through. But look, it's been awesome talking cricket bats with you, and would urge listeners to jump onto your Instagram and your website, because it is like a veritable cricketing who's who. The folks who dropped into your workshop, as we mentioned at the top of the podcast, the likes of Dre Russ, Chris Gayle, as well as former England and Australian captains galore. But Josh, a pleasure talking to you on the Top Order podcast. Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks for having me, guys. Been fun.